Okay, at this point I've got all the pieces sub-assembled and taped, and the last thing I want to do before I start the assembly is take my back plate on the motor and go ahead and secure it to the firewall. So what I'm going to do is lay this out and center it on the firewall, keeping about, maybe an 1/8 of an inch, 3/16 of an inch below the arch of the firewall. And then I want to pre-drill my holes. And now I can go ahead and insert my screws. Okay, the one thing you want to keep in mind whenever you insert your screws is to make sure the Allen screws are up and down instead of sideways, because that'll make it easier to install the motor later. Okay, quick review of all the parts before we get started. We've glued the top panel and the bottom panel together with the ink going to the inside. I've also installed the light, so I have the pigtail sticking out at the rear and on the side here. And the light strip is on the bottom, and I've already checked it to make sure it still works, and it does. My elevons, I have taped the leading edges of them and also beveled them on a 45. I've popped out the wood, inserted hot glue, put the wood back in on the rear. On the front, I'm going to be using magnets, so I'm just going to leave those for right now. I've also inserted the braces on both the left and the right, and I do have a left and a right. Also, the wood is to the outside, and my brace parts went on the inside. I've glued together my canopy, formed the top, as well as glued and drilled out the holes in the wood parts in the rear. I've removed the wood in the front. On the vertical fins, I have taped them off here, cutting the tape on this line here and wrapping it around on the back sides on both of them, so those are ready. I've pre-mounted my back plate for the motor to the firewall, and I've also cut off the lip that's on the battery strap plate. Normally the plate comes like this. If you got a recent kit, then it'll be already cut, but if not, you can cut it off if you wish, or you can leave it. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing the night version, then you'll want to cut this part off and just cut it flush. And I cut it off and then just sanded the cut edge there a little bit. The next thing I'll do is go ahead and start with the front. So I will set these pieces aside. I'm going to test fit the pieces, so this piece goes on this side. I put it in and push it to the rear, and this would be the other side. I'm going to put it in and push it to the rear, making sure the pieces are as far back as I can go with them. And those are good, so I'm going to go ahead and glue these in. So to start with, I'll pull them back out. And now I'm going to glue the contact points. So you review it, look at, make sure you understand where the contact points are. But in this case, I'm going to glue a little bit on the rear here, a little bit on the back of the rear, and then down the front and along the bottom, and down, and then here, and then a little glue here, and a little glue there. And because I work with the glue on high, I have a little bit of working time. So I want to make sure I get it in the right slot, push it in, set it down, and check it, make sure it's standing straight up. And I want to push it down and make sure it's square and all the way down. Then I want to run a gusset on the inside here from the battery strap pocket all the way back. And then from the front here back to the battery strap pocket, just like that. And then we'll put a little bit there. And again, check and make sure that's straight up. And then I'll flip it over and run a slight bead a slight gusset around the bottom here. On the front, now I won't do the inside of this yet because I have the wood plate that's going to go in there. This wood plate is going to go in, and it'll only go in one way and I'll have the holes line up. So that wood plate's going to go like that. But I'll wait till I get this piece in before I glue that in. And now I'm going to go ahead and glue this one here in. So again, I test fit, make sure my wood is on the outside, and glue it in. Okay, and also at this point I can go ahead and glue in my wood piece. So I make sure it fits properly, the holes all line up, and now I'll take it off, turn it over, and put the glue on it. Just run a nice little bead around it. And then stick it in place. Mash it around. And then I can go ahead and glue the gusset on the inside here. The gusset can go all the way from the back all the way up the front. With a wet finger, I will wipe it out. Just like that. So now I have the sides of the canopy glued in place. Okay, the next step is to install the elbows, so I lay them out, and then I'm going to take and put tape on the leading edge and split the tape so that it's about half the distance. Just like that. Wipe it down really good. And now we'll go ahead and stick this in place. So I want to match this edge here. And I want just a slight gap, an ever so slight gap, so that whenever you let that go, it lays down. So I want to do the same thing on the other side. So now I have both the elbows, so I'm going to fold them back and run a piece of tape on the back side. Okay, so you run the piece of tape on the back side here, and then mash it down, and then mash it over onto the bottom, and then back over onto the control surface. So you wind up with a piece of tape on the bottom and a piece of tape on the top. And if you've done it right, the top and the bottom should be meeting with just a slight gap between the two of them. And that makes for a good hinge. And now we have both the hinges done. So next we can go ahead and put in our fins. Now if you have ink on here that you did not remove, you want to put the ink toward the inside. So that's what I do. I put the ink toward the inside. So now you test fit these pieces, and if they're tight to go in, you can mash them so that they will go in, but you need them to go in pretty easily, just like that. Now I'll look at the contact points and go ahead and pull them out and glue them up. So here we go. By now I should be able to check my canopy, so I'll go ahead and put the canopy in place here and just check the fit. That looks pretty good. I can put the pin in, so I will test it. good. Now all I have to do is put in the magnets. So if you're using magnets, then you can put them in. If not, you can go ahead and glue in the wood and then drill the holes, and then you would be able to insert your pins.